The four friends had planned this camping trip for months. Alex, Jess, Mike, and Sarah were childhood friends who had recently reunited after years of drifting apart. They decided that a weekend in the remote forests of Blackwood would be the perfect way to rekindle their bond. With tents, supplies, and high spirits, they set off on a sunny Friday morning, ready for adventure. By late afternoon, they had set up camp deep within the forest. The towering trees formed a dense canopy overhead, casting long shadows as the sun began to dip. As they gathered around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and reminiscing about old times, the initial excitement slowly gave way to a creeping sense of unease. "Did you guys hear about the legend of Blackwood?" Mike asked, his voice low and conspiratorial. Jess rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go. Another one of Mike's ghost stories." "No, seriously," Mike insisted. "There's this old tale about the Whispering Woods. They say that if you're out here at night, you can hear whispers, voices that try to lure you into the darkness. People who follow the voices are never seen again." "Great, just what we need," Sarah muttered, wrapping her arms around herself as the temperature dropped. "Thanks, Mike." The conversation shifted, but the story lingered in the back of their minds. As night fell, an oppressive silence enveloped the forest. The fire crackled and popped, sending sparks into the night air, but it did little to dispel the growing tension. They turned in early, each retreating to their tents. Alex woke with a start in the middle of the night. The forest was eerily quiet, save for the soft rustling of leaves. He lay still, straining to hear anything out of the ordinary. Then faintly he heard it, a whispering sound, barely audible but unmistakable. He sat up, listening intently. The whispers seemed to be coming from the depths of the forest, weaving through the trees like a ghostly wind. Heart pounding, he unzipped his tent and stepped outside. The cold air bit at his skin, and he shivered. "Hello?" he called softly, but there was no response, just the persistent, eerie whispering. Against his better judgment, he took a few steps toward the sound. The whispers grew louder, forming words he couldn't quite understand. "Alex, where are you going?" He turned to see Jess standing by her tent, her face pale in the moonlight. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Jess nodded slowly, her eyes wide with fear. "It's the whispers, like in Mike's story." Just then, Mike and Sarah emerged from their tents, equally unnerved. "We all heard it," Mike said, his bravado from earlier gone. "What do we do?" "We should stick together," Sarah said firmly. "No one wanders off alone." They huddled close to the dying fire, trying to shake off the chilling whispers that seemed to surround them. But the voices persisted, growing louder and more insistent. They spoke in a strange, guttural language that none of them could understand, but the tone was unmistakably malevolent. Suddenly, the fire flared up, casting grotesque shadows on the trees. In the flickering light, Alex thought he saw something moving among the trees, dark, twisted shapes that flitted in and out of the darkness. "Did you see that?" he whispered. Mike nodded, his face ashen. "We need to get out of here, now." They hastily packed their belongings, the whispers growing louder and more frantic. As they made their way through the forest, the whispers seemed to follow them, weaving through the trees and echoing in their ears. The darkness felt alive, pressing in on them from all sides. After what felt like hours, they reached a small clearing. The whispers were deafening now, a cacophony of malevolent voices urging them to turn back, to give in to the darkness. Sarah stumbled and fell, her flashlight rolling away. In the dim light, Alex saw something that made his blood run cold, a figure standing at the edge of the clearing, watching them. It was tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. Its mouth moved, but the whispers seemed to come from all around them, as if the forest itself was speaking. "Run!" Alex shouted, grabbing Sarah and pulling her to her feet. They sprinted through the forest, branches whipping at their faces and tearing at their clothes. The whispers followed, relentless and hungry. They didn't stop until they burst out of the forest and onto the dirt road where their car was parked. Panting and terrified, they piled into the car. Mike fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The whispers were right outside now, pressing against the windows, trying to get in. Finally, the engine roared to life and they sped away, the whispers fading into the distance. They didn't stop driving until they reached the safety of the nearest town. Exhausted and shaken, they vowed never to speak of what happened in Blackwood again. But each of them knew they would never forget the night when the forest whispered their names, trying to claim them forever.